Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Today we're going to be looking at a Hawk Convair 880 in Delta Airlines markings. This kit came out in 1960. Comes in 1/126 scale. Got box art done by Bill Campbell, who did the vast majority of the Hawk model box arts of this period from the late 50s all the way through to the early 70s, I believe. And it's an interesting kit of a little-known aircraft. It's the third of the three narrow-body jets that came out in the late 50s, early 60s. You had the 707 from Boeing, the DC-8 from Douglas, and Convair brought out their 880. It was the least successful of the three, and wasn't in production for very long, and didn't hang around too long as well. It was not a very economical aircraft. So let's take a look at the box. We've got a lot of information on here. It's a long box, one of the standard size Hawk boxes from this period. You've got Hawk logo over here, 45 gleaming detailed parts, complete with authentic Delta decals and colors. You've got a nice profile of the Convair 880 in full Delta regalia. You've got information about Hawk's address, location, accurate scale reproduction of the newest addition to Delta's growing jet fleet. On the end, we've got the kit number, which is 519-100. So this was a $1 kit, and reproduction of the top box art. The other end, similar. And on the sides, we've got production again of 1960. Super detailed jet engines, complete with suppressors. Nose wheel with doors and springs. Tailplane with Delta decals and colors. And main gear with full details. Molded in white. Hi-fi decals. Not sure how they're any different from regular decals. Yeah, maybe they were in stereo. Thrust reversers. And easy to assemble. On the opposite side, we've got blurb about, asking your dealer for more Hawk kits, and a few other kits from their line. Bertram the Stag Beetle, a San Francisco cable car, and a Fox Go Boy cart that's motorized. Nothing on the bottom. So, kind of a pretty colorful box. So a little bit more about the Convair. So it was, as I mentioned, the third of the narrow bodies that came out. It was smaller than the other two, but faster. It ended up setting some speed records. It's reported to have gone 615 miles an hour, so it was the fastest commercial jet in the world. But only 65 of them were produced between 59 and 62. It had its first flight in January of 1959. Originally, Convair, started design work on this plane in April of 1956, when both Boeing and Douglas had announced their jet aircraft that were going to be coming out. Then Convair kind of tried to catch up to them. Originally, it was called the Skylark when it was in its design stages. That changed to the Golden Arrow. Then it became the 600, and then it became the 880. Those last two numbers weren't part of a series number or model number or anything like that. They were representative of the 600 miles an hour that the plane was supposed to go. And then marketing decided that 600 didn't sound speedy enough, so they went to 880, which represented 880 feet per second. Part of the thing that made it go so fast was it was equipped with a civilian version of the J79 engine called the CJ80 or CJ805-3. And the first production example was the prototype. They didn't actually make a separate prototype of this. This was an error when they were thinking that you could just go straight to production and make changes on the production line after the first aircraft were being flown. And so when the FAA was going to give it a certificate, they demanded a number of other avionics that the aircraft needed. And Convair, instead of redesigning and making changes, to the aircraft internally, they just decided to make a hump across the roof of the aircraft, which is known as the raceway hump. So you don't see it in this drawing, but you do see it on the kit itself. Had fiberglass seating, but it also had high fuel consumptions, which again made this not a very economical aircraft. Ultimately, it ended up flying with Cathay Pacific, Delta, Japan Airlines, Northeast, Swiss Air, TWA, and then a joint venture between KLM and Viasa in Venezuela. Those were interesting planes because half the plane, one side was painted in KLM markings and the other side was painted in Viasa markings. So let's take a look at what we got. So first we'll look at the decal sheet, or I'm sorry, the instruction sheet here. How much we can get in. I'll do it this way first. So we've got nice slick paper, pretty large size. And so information about the 880, so some of the stuff that we've just discussed. That's on here. Nice photograph of, looks like the actual subject of the model here. And we've got photographs of the steps. So a little bit of stuff that you're going to need to put it together. Tube of cement, X-Acto knife. In fact, they even call out the X-Acto by name. Interesting thing here, they're mentioning that there's a pin inside the fuselage for you to be able to secure some nuts to give it some nose weight, which is kind of neat. That goes down this way. So putting your fuselage together, your outer wings, stabilizers, wings to the center part. Kind of an interesting way. It's this weird three-piece section on the wings here. And then there's the inner part, which is the center part of the fuselage. Glue that together. Get your jets. And then you got the little suppressors that go on afterwards. And your doors. And finally, landing gear. And your main wheels and nose wheel. The gear doors. And here's your painting guide. And I guess that kind of shows you where your decals are supposed to go as well. And a couple other aircraft. So this is a classic one that they made for a long time, the Convair. In this case, they're listing as a C-131 Samaritan. There's also the Convair 303, I think. The 202, the 303, the 505, something like that. Their prop liner that they made for a number of years. And then also, this is kind of a neat one, the Vickers Viscount, kind of a different aircraft for them to make. So that's your instructions. Then we got your decals. So these have yellowed over the time. little kind of bubbling in here. And interesting that they split the side stripes into two pieces. Make it a little easier to put on, I guess. Your large one-piece tail. Yeah, I think these probably go on the engines. And you've got a specific number for this aircraft, N8801E. And that happens to be the first 880 delivered, which went to Delta. It entered service in May of 1960, and the actual model number was the 880-22M. They upgraded the engines to 805-3B engines. The 8801E was actually the fourth aircraft off of the production line. The serial number from Convair was 22-00-04. It was christened by the Miss San Diego, Leona McCurdy, and she christened it with the name of Delta Queen, and it was done with a bottle of water. That was water from the different rivers throughout the Delta system, so kind of a neat way of christening a Delta airplane. So on February 10th, 1960, it set a new commercial speed record on its delivery flight from San Diego to Miami. It completed that trip in 3 hours and 31 minutes and 54 seconds. And so it was a very fast aircraft. In fact, its normal operating speed is faster than what most airliners are flying today. It was flying at around Mach 0.89, and like your 777s and your Airbuses right now, they're running at around Mach 0.84, 85, maybe 86, but this one was running at around 0.89. So very fast aircraft, but very, very thirsty. Those J79s need a lot of juice. So after Delta was done with this aircraft, it actually ended up getting sold to Boeing. Boeing ended up buying up all the Delta Convairs. They refurbished them, and this particular one was sold to Lancia. It was given new codes of AN-BLW. That was in March of '74. They held on to it until it was sold to Suma Corporation back in the United States in 1978, and it was renumbered again back to the original N8801E. That was then quickly turned around to American Jet Corp, who renumbered it as N8178J. Then got sold to Gulfstream in '79, and then Gulfstream ended up selling it to a company called Profit Airlines in 1981, who ended up scrapping the aircraft. So I was able to find, needless to say, quite a number of images of this plane, since it was the first in service, kicking off the service with Delta, and there's a lot of fanfare with that. So there's a little bit of, or quite a bit of stuff out there on it. So I'll show you a few of those images here, and we'll come back and take a look at the kit. Alrighty, welcome back. We're going to take a look at fuselage first. And so we've got, I think it's a little, I'm not sure, there's a little dirt that got in here or something, but the recessed lines have all got kind of like a brown to them. Here's the hump that I was telling you about. So I did include it on the kit, even though it wasn't on the box art. Some real fine panel lines that are raised with some recessed stuff in here. Quite a lot of detail, fairly crisp. Your windows are represented by just little squares. And yeah, we've got a 1960 copyright from Hawk inside there. And here's the other side that has the opening doors. So pretty nice detail. Quite make out the panel lining. Pretty nice cockpit area. Let's see what the fuselage fit kind of looks like here. So it looks like the parts are a little bowed. But when you do get them together, they do make a pretty nice fit. Just kind of get the bowing out. Bow, B-O-W, not bowing. So you might not need a whole lot of filling on this, which is nice. A pretty decent fit. And let's take a look at the wings. So the wings are made up this kind of weird thing. So you get here's your top wing, which is the full span. You get your elevons, your wing line or panel lines are raised. Then you've got your underside, similar again. But the underside piece only covers about 2/3. And then that last 1/3 then goes on to the centerpiece, which then connects to the fuselage. So kind of a different way of putting this together. So you get your top and bottoms on that. You do get some detail, very minimal inside the wheel well, just some lines in there. But at least it is, boxed in and everything. It's not unlike, some of the other 50s kits previous that just have holes here, or there are no openings at all. You just get the landing gear stuck in and some tiny little spots. I want to take a look. Oh yeah, there's the little pegs that you could put some weights on to weigh the nose down. There's the rest of the wings. Let's look at these engine pods. So they look pretty nice. Pretty nice detail on them. They have little vents there. Did not indicate that there was anything that goes inside the front of them. So when you do assemble them, looks like they are going to be pretty hollow straight through. But you do get the suppressors that go on the end that kind of cap it. So it will be pretty open on the inside. So you might want to get something from your spare parts box or scratch build something to fill in there. And let's take a look at our tail planes. They are separate pieces, top and bottom. And similar to the wings, you've got some raised and recessed details. So pretty nice. And a few various other parts. We've got some wheels. Here's your doors. Got some ejector pin marks on there, unfortunately. Some gear doors. Here's your landing gear. On your main gears. A little bit of detail. Better than what was coming out just a couple years before. And that's about it. And that's the thing with the Airliner kits. There's usually not a whole lot to them. So it's kind of a simple kit, although there are, what did it say, 49 parts to this. So it's a little bit more of a part count than some of the earlier kits. But that's about it. Not a whole lot to this to look at, but pretty nice kit. So this Hawk model was only made in 1960. There were possibly two different versions of this that have slightly different code numbers on them, but they're both considered 1960 kits. And another issue didn't come out until Glencoe did a repop on it in 1991. There aren't a lot of Convair kits out there due to its limited production and the short time that it stayed in service. Aurora did make one in 103 scale. They made a Delta and a TWA in 1961. Quarter 144 scale. Most recently, Eastern Express in 2020 has come out with a whole series of 880s in a number of different markings. Microscale also had a 144 scale back in 1975, and that really wasn't their own kit. Microscale had gotten a hold of some molds from the old toping or topping model company, which used to make the manufacturer display models, and Microscale got a hold of a few molds from them and made some kits in the 70s, and the Convair 880 was one of those. There was a 1/179th scale kit from a company called Lo Ma from Italy, also in the 60s. Lindbergh made a 189th scale. They popped it a few times starting in 1959. They did a joint one with Nokomis in Mexico, who then ended up taking over the molds and released it in partnership independently with Pegaso out of Mexico as well. And there was one in 1/200 scale out of Japan from a company called Sanwa in 1962. And finally, a company called SIKU, or Siku maybe, but I think it's an acronym, SIKU, out of Germany in 1/250th scale, also in the 60s as well. I think a Czech company may have gotten a hold of those molds a little bit later in the 70s too. So not a lot of Convair 880s out there. Revell did make the follow-up version, the Convair 990, which was Convair's attempt to try to get a little bit more life out of this aircraft. The 880 was a little short-legged, so the 990, they tried to give it a little bit more range to compete with the other guys. But by the time that was coming out, then the beginnings of the wide body era were happening. So there really wasn't a lot of demand for this aircraft. Good airplane. There wasn't anything really bad with it. It just wasn't economical. So ultimately, in the end, one ended up being converted, in 1974 into a freighter. A lot of them ended up going to some smaller airlines down in Central America and Africa for a while. Most had been scrapped, by the year 2000. The FAA did utilize one for a while to train flight examiners until it got destroyed by an explosion in the cargo hold in 1995. So they were using it pretty late. The U.S. Navy acquired one in 1980 and converted it to a tanker, test it to see, being a higher speed, if it would be more adaptable to refueling fighter jets than the C-1, the KC-135s that were being used at the time. Using something a little faster, if that would make refueling a little better, but obviously it wasn't that big of a difference because they only got the one. It was unofficially dubbed the UC-880. There was no real official name for it, but they did have it until 1995 when it was damaged in a decompression test that blew out the side of the fuselage. It was on the ground when that happened, when they were doing the testing on it, but the examination showed that the aircraft would have survived if it had been airborne, because the control cables and linkages and stuff were not damaged by the decompression. Right now, there's hardly any of these around. I mean, there weren't that many built. There's one complete aircraft in storage in Mojave. There's one complete aircraft in South Africa that's been turned into a lodge. It was originally purchased by a country down in southern Africa to be used as an executive transport for like the president or prime minister of the country. That all fell through. It never got taken possession by them, but it had been completely outfitted, in a real luxurious cabin. And so a gentleman purchased it and trucked it over to South Africa and turned it into a lodge, in full 70s regalia. And it looks like it's still there. How much it's being used still, that I wasn't able to find out. And finally, and probably most importantly, is Elvis's Convair 880. That was an ex-Delta airliner. Actually, sister ship to this one here was N8804E. And Elvis dubbed it the Lisa Marie. Used it, it was luxuriously outfitted. And it's still in existence, and you can go see it and tour it down at Graceland. It's parked outside there. So that's about it for the Convair 880. Good looking plane, I think. Pretty accomplished plane, but just wasn't quite the right plane for what it needed to be. So that's it. If you've built one of these, tell us about it in the comments section. If you got any pictures of one that you've built, send it in for the next viewer build video. That'd be great. And if you got any other pictures of other vintage kits that you built, send those in as well. Email addresses in the channel description, and be greatly appreciated. That's about it for today. Thanks for watching, and have yourselves a great rest of your day.